Tonight, we will be discussing episode 108 of Virtuous Woman for the second time. The first time we did the entire discussion, and I discovered at the end that I hadn't pushed record and I wanted to cry. And it was a really good discussion, so hopefully we can
Let's
duplicate it.
do our best.
Oh, and I just realized I forgot my notes. Hold on. let
Okay,
me
go get your notes.
get my notes.
Okay, so 108, A Virtuous Woman, written by Kirsten Van Horn and directed by Azure Salim. I'm Courtney Williams, creator and producer of Outlander Behind the Scenes. And tonight I'm drinking water. And my overall impression of this episode 108, I really enjoyed it. It's among my top 3 favorites of the season. And this series just keeps surprising me. It keeps pleasantly surprising me. I mean, I always go in open, but I was just, I really enjoyed this episode yet again.
Hello, I am Catherine Toomer, family medicine physician, and I have come to BTS by way of Blacklanders for what was supposed to be a one-time event that turned into a multi-year event, thankfully.
Yes.
And now I have sisters and I have travel buddies and everything else. So I'm also a book reader of Outlander, though I don't remember any of them because it was so many years ago. But I enjoy the show separately, and now I really enjoy Blood of My Blood. Surprisingly, because I was actually went in expecting not to like it very much, but I actually enjoyed it more than many of the episodes of Outlander, to be honest. So my overall impression of this is that it was, again, just very, very well done, very engaging, and I really enjoyed it. And it was one of the few episodes that I've actually watched twice. I rarely watch episodes twice, but this one I did.
My name is Carmen Schmidt, and I write the Outlander Anatomy blog. I am a retired professor of human anatomy and with almost 40 years of teaching experience in the field. And that was one of the things that drew me to Outlander in the first place, was the amount of science and medicine that was in the show. And I am happy to report that Blood of My Blood is carrying on that tradition to a good degree. And I still have lots to say from my perspective in these different episodes. Tonight, I am drinking my sparkling wine, and I accidentally spilled it just before we got started all over the desk, but I got it mopped up. This was a terrific episode. I loved it. So a trifecta. We all agree that I give it 2 thumbs up, and it actually is my favorite episode from Bomb this year. I just liked it so much. So that's my perspective.
Okay. I didn't get notes from Antoinette. I wish I did because I'd like to know her opinion on this one. Catherine, why don't you kick us off with your favorite scene?
My favorite scene was the opening with the instruments, and it was just sort of played out, and it was against the softness of the bath with the harshness of the barbaric looking instrument, the claws and all the rest. And you're like, what in the heck are those?
Yeah.
But it was still very meticulous. And it reminded me a lot of being in surgeries as you watch, surgery tech kind of laying out all the instruments of surgery and the preparation and how meticulous it is. And I thought that was very well done, even if the process is the same, even if the instruments have changed. And the cleanliness hopefully has changed. But that was my favorite scene.
Okay. I had several, but I'm going to mention in particular, I loved the scene between Brian and Jack, the horse, when Lord Lovett is going to his water in Aberdeen and they're packing up, and he comes over and says all of his disgusting Lord Levitt stuff to Brian, and Brian's understandably upset. And he's standing there just looking forward, and Jack is in the frame and he goes,
It was
and
really sweet.
I know, and Brian puts his hand on the horse's nose like it's okay, and the horse accepts it. So I thought, that had to be a spontaneous moment. I thought Brian did a great job of ad-libbing. Jamie Roy did. And so did Jack. And I really, really loved that little scene. And I loved that they captured it and that they put it in. And it just worked in the scene. It was great.
It was like the horse was comforting him. To me,
Yes.
it was just really tender, actually. And that I would love to be nuzzled by that beautiful animal. So
To me, it was like he was saying, "Oh, are you okay?"
yeah.
And he was like, "I'm okay." And then the horse is like, "Okay." And Brian has to have been complimented about his acting in that moment.
I had on my list the Davy Beaton's tools laid out too, because it was like he was showing the his trade, the tools of his trade, the wares of his trade to everybody, sort of as a display. I felt because he certainly wouldn't be using all of those tools for an exam like that. But since that's already taken, I want to say that I loved Archbug's face when the news was brought that Isaac Grant had passed away, because he was been watching several points throughout the episode of the growing bond between Malcolm and Henry, and he's disturbed by that. And now the news comes that, oops, Malcolm is going to be the laird, and he's up Schitt's Creek. Pardon me for saying that, but I just loved his face. He did a great job, I thought, of projecting a lot of information without saying a word. It's just dismay and oops.
My other was when Mrs. Porter was telling Julia about Brian and what he meant to her as her son. And I thought that was very touching and very realistic and very well written.
It was.
Yeah. Okay, my next one was actually Julia and Lord Levitt in the beginning when he's saying, like, what a whatever he says, something day, what a great day. I have a surprise for you. And, she's kind of like, huh? And then he tells her what the surprise is. And she says, oh, that is a surprise. I mean, it was just, she was so deadpan and he's so clueless, that, oh, I'm going to be virile in our bed. And yeah, I know that that's what you want, my rose. And he tweaks her face and she just looks like, ugh. And he doesn't even. I just thought I got a kick out of that scene.
It was a good scene. um, I enjoyed Lady Ellen drinking the holly water, the sea holly water, in defiance of, they were expecting her to have a sip or two, and she just drank the whole thing down in front of all those men. That was one of her small acts of defiance, because there wasn't any much she could say or do. But she did that, and she drank it all down, and put the glass down with a little bit of a thump. And I just loved that spirit in her. I thought it was great.
Yes, and a great, she's such a diplomat. That was a diplomatic response to
Yes.
the situation. I thought. Okay, let's go on to what worked for you, Catherine.
What worked for me was all the dialogue around virtue, both the cluelessness of men and Mrs. Fitz and her dialogue are with Julia. I mean, not Julia, with Ellen, but mainly with Ellen's also questioning. Like suddenly her resolve starts to fade a little bit. And so just all the language and how the brothers are on both sides of the fence. One, they're indignant. At the other side, they're like, maybe I hope everything turns out okay. And then um, Malcolm's conversation around it, him talking to Ellen, it just seemed like all the dialogue was well written around the topic, and it hit all the different sides and nuances of the topic as well.
Really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What really worked for me was the waiting scenes when Ellen drinks the sea holly water and when they say you can go pee essentially. And they're showing everyone and how on edge everyone is. And you just felt it because she has this urgency to pee, obviously. She's dancing around, and everyone has this urgency to know what is the outcome of this test? What is even this part? Nobody said anything about it. I mean, just all of I thought that they dragged that out and it made and showed all the different players, and it made you really feel kind of the sweating going on by everyone.
Yep, I agree. Um, well, I thought Ellen's performance throughout the test was superb. Her shifting when she needed to urinate, her tears of relief and humiliation upon the announcement, and her shaky and hyperventilating, her shaking and hyperventilating as she was waiting for that verdict. I'm sorry, she was on the table, I think, when she started weeping, right? And then when she was standing up, she was hyperventilating and shaking a little bit as she was waiting to hear the verdict. All of those, I thought, really took us into the moment of the kind of desperation that she must have been feeling. And she kept it together. She didn't become hysterical. She didn't start weeping. She didn't start begging. Nothing. She just held it all together, which was a testimony to me of her strength of character that she has.
Yeah.
I liked the scene where she is like, how strong of your character must you have or personality must you have to sit in a room, urinate into a bucket, essentially, in a room full of men staring at you, and with such defiance also. I mean, she was just like, now what? And I thought that was, I liked very well done, very indicative of her personality, and it makes her. I liked her more. I mean, I've always liked her, but I like the actress. I think she's really good. And every scene she's in, she takes.
She does. And there was a discussion or a comment that she made because Mrs. Fitz is pouring water down her. And
Mm-hmm.
then she's saying, you're going to have to hold your water. And she's like, wait, I thought my water is supposed to run clear. And she's like, yes, but you have to hold it until they tell you to go. And you can't say anything because, you know, a virtuous woman doesn't say a lot of things and she doesn't let her thoughts come out. And she said something like, is it any wonder that, you know, people don't pass this thing? And then add the pressure of all the guys being there. And then the
Mm-hmm.
surprise, it's not the physician you thought it was going to be, blah, blah, blah. You know, she just, yeah, she meets every challenge in the present and she deals with it and as best as she can. And yeah, she's a cool character. Something that really worked for me was in the scene between that you mentioned, Kathy, between Davina, Brian, and Julia.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how they let them all be who they were, who they are. They
Mm-hmm.
let Brian be this chivalrous man who, of course, wants to go rescue his woman. They let Davina be a concerned mother. And then they let Julia be a woman who's from the future, who reads and has her wits about her. And they were all able to just be who they were and it worked in the scene and they were able to figure out how to team up and make it work. And I liked that. That worked for me.
Yeah. I had that on my one of my favorite scenes, actually, Courtney, because they managed to intercalate those characters and give them each a part to play that was significant. There wasn't anybody that was undermined or pushed to the side. Everybody had a part to play, and I thought that was really good. Another element that worked for me was when Ellen departed the Great Hall. She managed to salvage her dignity in the face of all of that humiliation and degradation. And man, I just thought, wow, you go, girl, because I was so impressed. And she never said a word, but as she walked out, she stared at her brothers with a look that could have turned them to ash. You know, I, and they were not protecting her. They did not protect her or offer her any solace or comfort. And so I just thought that, you know, it was like wrapping herself in a cloth of righteousness to me, that her righteous indignation about how she had been treated and how despicable that her own relatives had behaved. So I really thought that worked extremely well for me.
Yeah. I wrote down the ending where Mrs. Fitz stops them and says, you know, if you really love her, you'll stay away from her.
Yeah,
There were a lot
correct.
of great twists and turns in this episode. Let's go to least favorite scene. Kathy?
Okay. My least favorite, and only not because of acting or anything else, and not because of writing, because really, it was all very well done. It was more the emotion that it evoked, and that was just the violation and fear in Ellen. Just it just was painful
Yeah.
to watch. And she's such a good actress, and that's partly why, because it came through, but it doesn't take a lot to imagine how she must have been feeling.
Oh, yeah.
And so those were my least favorite. They were hard to watch.
I agree. That's what I have as my least favorite was her test was a sequence of scenes, and the specific one that was heart that I found heartbreaking was when he does the pelvic exam. It was as if she were saying, you know, she had been through so much, and that was just, I mean, come on, to have some perfect stranger in front of this big room touching your vulva and your
And wondering if
vagina.
that's going to be what gives her away.
Yeah, but do you think it's that? I think it's
I think,
just
oh,
the,
I don't think that's what
I
it
think
is,
it's
but
the
I'm sure that was part of the
violation.
fear. That
Yeah.
was part, I think the humiliation was, and the violation was one thing, and then the fear was the other.
Yeah. No, I just thought she seemed like her cup ran over with the humiliation and violation in that moment, and it was really hard to watch. I felt she went into herself and just, you know, started crying, and it was that was a tough moment.
Yeah.
Well, that was at the top of my list too. Ellen's humiliating ordeal at the hands of this group of judgmental men was extraordinarily difficult for me to watch. It was very well done. So you know, I don't think they could have, I can't imagine how they could have improved on that whole sequence. It was virtually perfect in displaying what it was that she was going through and allowing us, especially as women, to relate to that, to the humiliation that she suffered. And I just thought that, you know, to say it was my least favorite scene is not quite right because I was so impressed with it. But it was like Kathy says, it was just so difficult to watch and to see that happen because you know it's true. You know it's happened for centuries, that sort of thing. And so it was just a really stark reminder of what women have had to put up with for centuries, eons, actually.
Such
Still not
bullshit.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think of rape kits, what that is and how that is
Yep.
the same.
Yeah, it's true. Ugh. Okay. What didn't work for you guys? That didn't
I
work for
didn't have
you.
anything that didn't work.
I
Nothing.
didn't have anything either.
I
I
didn't have
didn't have
everything
anything that
worked.
didn't work.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
have a couple of things.
Okay.
Okay.
A Brian in the basement.
Oh,
Poor
yeah.
guy. He didn't have much to do. I mean, it's not that it was. It's not that it didn't work, but I just felt so sorry for him. He's stuck down there, sharpening his dirk in the dark, and with no really ability to affect any change or any influence on what was happening. It must have been horrible for him. But the other thing that I didn't feel worked very well was Julia and Henry's reunion. I don't know why. I wasn't moved by that very
Oh, yeah.
much. And I was like, what is the matter with you? They've been apart all of, for what, 7
8
episodes,
or
8
yeah, 7.
episodes
Yeah.
nearly, and we've been waiting for this to happen. The music was lovely, but I just didn't, it didn't,
It was very anticlimactic.
yeah, and I'm not sure why. You always ask us for the least favorite scenes to say why, and I
Mhm.
don't really know why. Courtney, I've been, pondering on it most of the day. Is why didn't it really work for you? And
Because it didn't come off as authentic. I mean, she just saw him and
she
they
was kind
just
of
seen, I mean, he
perky
thought she
for,
was dead.
yeah,
I mean, in a situation like that, that would have been so emotional. Like, I mean, think about it. In Outlander, what happened when Jamie saw Claire thinking she was dead, he
fainted.
fainted,
That's true.
Yeah.
and I guess they couldn't do that because it would have been too much on the nose,
Yeah.
but it was still, although which actually kind of breathed, I forgot about my least favorite are all the scenes that he's in. I just find the way they've written Henry is so ugh, he's such a, I don't like his character at all. I find his scenes annoying.
I thought he had some better scenes in this one,
I did
honestly,
too.
because
The
they had
only
him
ones I thought were
doing
better were the ones when he was with Malcolm. Those scenes.
Malcolm and Ned and
Mhm.
Yeah, but while he's whining, his whining gets on my nerves.
but like when he was telling them, no, your beaten is not going to do this,
Mhm.
when he's doing his job, I don't know, I felt he was better written in this
Mhm.
episode, but maybe their reunion was, it was kind of like in a busy hallway. Uh, do you think it was that it was just a little too,
I mean, they weren't looking over their shoulders or anything. It was just
Yeah, I mean, how likely is that? Because all of a sudden later, the whole corridor is filled with servants and people going back and forth, but there's nobody around when he sees her. And I don't know. I just honestly was the only part that disappointed me a little bit is that we've been waiting all this time for them to find each other. She didn't seem that
well, I guess because
um,
she knew who he was and where he was.
that's
She
just
knew that
true.
he would, so she was
well,
prepared. So
she didn't
she
know that
knew
he
that
was
she wouldn't
there.
have
She
been
didn't,
so surprised that he was in the building. Now, him seeing her,
yeah.
that was
Yeah,
so
because
different.
he
He
thought she
thought she
was
was dead.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't believe what he was seeing at first.
Oh, I
I
guess he
don't know,
thought
yeah.
if he had been hallucinating or something from before.
Yeah, it was a kind of an odd mix, and then you throw Archbug in there and all. I'm sure we'll hear from others about why it didn't work, so that's good. Okay, well, let's go to things I noticed, Kathy.
The things I noticed, which really jumped out at me, was when and Brian and Jamie talking about going to get their wife, and the way they said my wife sounded identical. It's like if I had
It
my eyes
did.
closed, I wouldn't have been able to tell who said it.
Yep.
So it's like the similarity between him going to Leoc to get his wife and Brian's going to Leoc to get his wife. and Jamie was going to Wentworth to get his wife. And
Yeah.
so I just thought that was
When you said, take your hands off my
of my
wife.
wife. And then he said, I'm going to save my wife. The my wife sounded exactly the same.
It did. I agree.
You know, I think that scene was done with ADR, which is additional dialogue recording.
Mm,
If you watch it closely, well, my opinion is the dialogue doesn't match exactly.
the mouth.
You think they used
No, I
Sam's
don't think
voice?
they did, but I wonder if there was any, maybe on Brian's part to make it sound similar. Or is
Mm,
that just what, a worked up Scottish guy sounds like?
No, it's the way he said my wife. My
Yeah,
wife,
my wife.
there's kind of a, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. I noticed that Dougal took Ellen's threat to heart and covered for her with Column. He didn't out her. Um, and when you were saying that about she looked at them when she left, she probably still, even though he's the laird and he's the war chief, she probably still carries some big sister or something
Mhm.
from a
Well, she
lifetime of being the
honestly, she
oldest.
probably helped wipe their bottoms. So
Exactly. So she's probably looked at like that at them in the past and they went, oh, it's like a visceral reaction almost. But yeah, I noticed that Colum didn't tell him about Ellen. So when he was asked directly, sorry, Dougal didn't tell Colum about
yeah,
Ellen when he was asked directly
no, he
because,
deflected.
yes, yeah. So he definitely doesn't want her to out him on the sharing, offering part of her dowry for the Jacobite cause. And that's just something I noticed.
I want to know why Henry's hair is still short and groomed. It's buzz cut or not buzz cut, but it's very short in the back, like you would do a haircut in modern days. He's been there for at least 6 months, if not longer, and his hair hasn't changed any, and it would grow out. It wouldn't be that way. And why is that? Why is that?
Yeah, and you already brought up why does Colum have such short hair?
I don't know why and Malcolm's hair is kind of curly, which is how Jamie's hair was when he was at Castle Leoch, and was preparing at the gathering. He had these short curls. So we've seen that before, but the modern haircut for Henry just doesn't seem like that should be that way after all this time. The
Yeah,
hair
that's a
grows
good point.
about a half an inch a month, so it should be at least 3 to 4 inches longer than it was, at the beginning, and it's not.
Yeah, and Dougal and Colum both have short hair
Yeah.
too. And theirs hasn't grown either. Okay, Kathy.
Mm, that's it for me.
Well, last time you said how sexy Colum was.
Oh, hi. I forgot that my arrow was on. Well, I watched the next episode and I was like, what was it? He's not handsome by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's his
He's
mouth,
striking,
and it's his mouth and his eyes, his
the
eyes.
piercing. Yeah,
Yeah. I did say he was sexy AF.
you did. He's got that kind of
Okay,
brooding
well, yeah.
feature
Yeah,
that
it's a je
Stephen
ne sais
has,
quoi.
and you love Stephen. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, is it the
So it's like
brooding?
just something about him. And I don't know if it's his vulnerability or what, but
you're a physician.
yeah. I think it's just his I think it's his mouth, to be honest, and his eyes and the way he just carries himself. But it's not because of looks. I don't think looks have anything to do with it.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. I'm like kind of like what's his name? That actor, Jeremy Renner, for example. Not handsome, but he's just something about him.
Yeah, I agree. He's cool.
I don't know who he is.
He's oh yeah, he's
Oh, he's the
Jeremy
one that
Renner.
got ran over by a snowcat and almost
Hmm.
died.
In real life?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it broke something like 30 bones or something like that. It was an
yeah.
incredible
Oh,
accident. And he's been in some of the Marvel,
He's
uh,
Marvel. He's been
and then
in
he did
he's a lot of action movies.
yeah,
He's an action
he did
actor.
a Jason Bourne
Oh yeah, he did. He took over from Matt Damon.
yeah, kind
oh,
of a spin-off of that.
okay.
Hmm.
All right. Maybe I know what he looks like. I just don't know his name.
Hmm.
Well, I noticed that Bollock almost smiled in this episode.
It was probably
It,
heartburn.
Isn't that babies? I thought only babies did that. They smile from heartburn. Oh.
well, it was more of a grimace when
Mhm.
Yeah,
Davina is handing him the chest to put on
Mhm.
the thing. He does
yeah.
like his face moves. I noticed that.
I may be projecting, but I felt that when Malcolm stops Ellen in the hall and expresses concern for her having to have faced this ordeal, uh, her face to me, I felt that she was felt badly that she was having to deceive this man because he clearly cares for her.
Mhm.
It seems to be a decent guy. And like I said when we first did this episode, I think that if Brian hadn't been there, that they might have made a decent marriage with each other because he treats her with respect and care, which was very unusual at that time, it seems,
Mhm.
and even now often. And I think that I think she probably feels a bit bad now. Maybe I'm projecting,
Mhm.
but I got the feeling that the look on her face was very subtle, but it
Mhm.
looked like I feel a bit
Mhm.
badly about having to do this.
I can't imagine she wouldn't have.
Yeah, she's a decent person. And
Yeah.
I've noticed that too throughout. I think she's constantly surprised by him and his
yeah.
thoughtfulness and kind of tenderness and
Hmm.
genuine affection for her. I think she's constantly, she's touched by that.
Yeah.
I definitely have seen that. Somebody asked what the fires burning outside were for, and I did looked that up because I did notice them in this episode. And I think they were being used for warmth for the guards. I don't know for sure, but
Don't
I
you think they
noticed,
could have been used to light the area a little bit
That's
to
what I thought.
provide some
Just provide some source of light
illumination?
since
yeah,
they were on guard.
Mhm.
yeah, that makes sense. I noticed that in the scene with Henry and Malcolm, where Henry's, saying, I'm gonna do everything I can to help you get your wife or whatever. And Malcolm's walking off and he stops and looks back and keeps walking and stops and looks back. I thought that was very appropriate. And, because Henry's a strange dude. And, uh, for him to kind of be like, is this guy serious? Like, what's his angle? I don't know. I
Well, I'm sure
noticed
it's
that.
also he was reflecting a more modern, probably camaraderie, than what Malcolm would have been familiar with.
Right.
Totally, especially if he's surrounded by Archibug and the like.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, Henry behaves more as though he's a peer
Yeah.
and not a bladier of a laird, and that might take Malcolm back a little bit. But I also thought Henry's statement that that's a woman worth, keeping if you have a woman like that, because he was speaking from his own heart,
Yeah.
about his
Yeah,
wife.
no, and that's a good point, Kathy, that about the more modern,
Hmm.
kind of thought
Relationship.
process. that he can relate with him about that and kind of maybe it's like a hopeful, like, is this guy for real? I like him. He thinks like I do. And the last one I will say is Archbug is riding an adorable horse. And I mentioned this last time, but she has, I think I mean, geldings look as cute as mares, so it's hard to know if it's a mare or
Mhm.
a gelding, but his horse has blonde highlights in the dark forelock
I'll have to
and
look at
these
that. I
big
didn't
brown
notice.
cute eyes. And I just was like, um, I thought the actor must be a good guy because this horse seems like that
I
she or
see.
he likes him. And I don't think it would like Archibug.
I have two. As Ellen moves to the table and she comes into the great hall and starts to walk up to the kind of dais that's up there, Colum crosses himself. I don't know if you notice that or not, but
I
he's
did.
like he goes like this and then he turns away and you just kind of you don't see the full cross, but he's crossing himself for that he's hoping that things will the Lord will shine his light on the grace uh, on this event. I also noticed that when Brian and Julia are going through the opening to get into Castle Leoch, he looks up and he says, Christ, the Grants and the Beaton are here. Now, he might recognize the Grants are there, but how would he know that the Beaton had come with them? Because they even call them and the people, the Mackenzies didn't know that they were going to bring their own priest and a Beaton, but somehow Brian knows. So I
By
thought
his
that was
horse,
a
maybe?
what?
By his horse? Because I'm sure that everybody used them. So maybe he just recognized his horse.
Hmm.
Maybe,
Kind of
It
like
could
maybe.
be
recognizing
because they
somebody's
don't have,
car.
they don't have,
What? I didn't
Like
hear
how
that.
you'd recognize somebody's car now. Maybe that's what you recognize.
oh,
License
so and
plate.
so's there. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, Castle Leathers doesn't have its own beaten, so they might use the grants. Maybe. Did
That
you
could
have,
be. That could be.
Mhm.
I noticed Archbug and Dougal as they were all saying goodbye and taking their leave. Dougal made this
Yeah, I loved it.
face at Arch, but it was great, but it was also it is exactly a face that Graham McTavish makes.
Mhm.
So I thought that was good. Um, I noticed that Archbug spits his words out. He seems angrier. Maybe he has liver issues. He seems angrier in this episode.
How does
He's
liver
got
issues
some
have to
kind of
do with anger?
issues. He's
Usually
Um,
liver problems make you lethargic
okay.
and jaundiced.
Well, in other in natural medicine, they or whatever they, what is it? Which one is it that what they say makes you angry? Liver,
Diabetes.
maybe chakras or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, diabetes does.
Makes
Blood,
you angry.
yeah, makes you very irritable. Blood
Yeah.
sugar, but he's kind of skinny for that, but
Maybe he has type 1.
he would have been dead by then. That time.
yeah, that too. He
Yeah.
might have.
I noticed that Colum also has the vein in his forehead,
Yes,
like Ellen and also Brian,
Brian.
who's of no relation, but we can see where Jamie gets it from both sides of his family.
Actually, we all have that vein. There's two, and one is usually bigger than the other, but we all have the frontal vein.
But it doesn't always stick out in
No,
people. Like like Julia Roberts is famous for that vein,
Mm-hmm.
her forehead.
I think it's more visible in people that don't have a lot of subcutaneous tissue there, that
Mhm.
their skin, the vein lies very close to the skin, and the size of the vein, which is quite large on Sam, for instance. And Brian has it too, although I don't think it's as noticeable, quite as noticeable as Sam's. Um, But yeah, it's called the frontal vein.
Okay. Well, that's all I had. So we can go on to medical and anatomical.
Okay. We'll start. Should I just go through my list?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So, the whole virtuous or virtue, whatever they going to call it, test was, false sense of security anyway, because you can't tell. Now you can tell if someone's been traumatized, but
Or
if it's
given birth.
or given birth, yeah. But if it's natural, intercourse enjoyable, so it's not forced in any way, there's no way that they could tell unless it's soon after. And if, there was some trauma, but um the specula, I saw the speculum that he picked up and Dougal
Held
picked
up.
up and he's like, what is this? And that and Pelham said, we want her examined, it's like some barbaric or whatever practices on our system. But anyway, but it turns out the specula was first, they found evidence of one from in Roman times from 79 BC. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think they found one in Pompeii,
Mm-hmm.
actually, in the
Yeah.
excavations.
And
Oh, wow.
yeah. And so
Didn't look
so
quite that like
I,
that,
I'm
but
not
it's
sure
very similar.
exactly what they would have used it for, but I guess, you know, Um, the other was just that the hymen, which is what they're looking for, is BS anyway. It some women, girls never born with one, others they, whatever, just any physical activity. You got this, she rides horses, so the likelihood of her hymen being intact is just really, really low. Um, and that the hymen is in and of itself is a membrane of sorts. And again, not all girls have them.
Yeah, that's great. I agree.
Poor girls who got tested and didn't have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only other medical that I it was not so much in terms of it was more the psychosocial, just in terms of the trauma of what she went through and how that could have ramifications for a while, not just in that moment. But and then the other was them holding her water, saying that it was um if she's not able to is an indication that she had sex at some point. There can be urethral trauma from rape, but it's usually not from consensual intercourse. So if that were the case, that she wasn't, but I guess in those days it didn't matter how it happened. It's just if it happened. So if that was a common test to see if a girl was a virgin or not, if she wasn't and she failed that test, it would have been probably from, not would have been forced. And so it would have been from trauma to the area. So it just seemed all of it just seemed wrong. And it just kind of reminds us of how far we've come. Not a whole lot, because the speculums are still those. Well, now we have plastic ones, so they're not cold and metal and of course they can have warmers and all the rest, but still. But in terms of women's health, but we're still in the dark ages in a lot of ways. However, I just thought it was all very, I mean, it was all around this test, something physical, and it was all nothing that could have been conclusive anyway.
Yeah, not in today's
Mm-mm.
understanding, scientific understanding. This is
But
all
those tests
just,
still happen even now,
oh,
virginity tests.
They
yes,
do?
yes,
Where?
in
Here in the United States,
certain communities.
a lot of community, yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I have a big list.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I noticed is that after Ellen peed and stood up, she couldn't wipe herself. And that must have been just horrible because it would run down her legs. And, with all of those men standing there, some of them had the decency, to look away. They should be ashamed to subject her to that. But the poor woman, she couldn't even wipe herself. She had to just stand there after she peed. And the clarity of the urine does not have anything to do with the woman's virginity. It doesn't, it, it might show if there's white cells in it, they might see some cloudiness or something like that if she has some kind of an infection, but that's not an indication of virginity at all. So that's another fallacy that they were promoting in that.
Now, is it that you think they're looking for like semen in her urine or something?
I have no idea what they were looking
Or
for.
maybe
They
everyone
said a
had
pure woman.
Maybe everyone had an infection back then because everyone was so dirty.
Well, they could have had chlamydia or, I don't know what they were looking for because I didn't look into it that deeply, honestly, to see how
I don't think
accurate.
they knew what they were looking for. It was just,
No, I think it was just
it was just clear water.
yes, and the different tests, what it does is it enables them to declare this woman unvirtuous or virtuous, depending on the political need that they had. Because they, if you remember back, Colin was speaking to Davy Beaton and he said, make sure she passes this test. You remember? And so he was instructing him, say that she's a virgin, even if she's not. And by having all of these different things, hoops that they had to jump through, it enables the men to have the outcome that they want to have. Virgo intacta means an intact virgin, meaning that the hymen is present, and that's what he declared for her. Davy Beaton had a vaginal speculum laying out, like Catherine said, and for him, if that's inserted into a virgin, it can stretch or tear the hymen itself and do damage by it. So that is not a. Geez, I hope he knew that.
I'm sure he didn't.
I wanted to make some comments about Julia's elixir. It comes from the Tortula Compendium. This is a 12th century document, which was written by an author and a physician from Salerno. I'll say a little bit more about that under BTS. But that particular concoction is in there. This is a real document, by the way. This is a real compendium that contains recipes for constrictives, which will make, when applied to the vaginal area, it will swell the tissues and make it look as though she has an intact hymen, or at least a very small opening to the vagina, and give the impression of virginity. And since it dates back, this is from the 12th century, that women have been dealing with this for 1,000 years and before that too. But this is, a recent, fairly recent indication of what they were going through. It does have egg whites and water and pennyroyal and alum and gunpowder or saltpeter and herbs. And then they soak a linen strip. Remember, did you hear Julia say we need a piece of cloth? It's usually a linen strip. They soak in that and then they insert it into the vagina, and that causes the vulva to swell. The concoction is, see if I have. Oh, would Julia know about this? Could she know about this? She's an avid science reader. If you remember from the first episode, she was reading a book, I believe, on biochemistry when the matron comes by and she said, oh, you're reading another one of your science things. So it's not impossible that she might be interested in some of those more obscure historical documents that are available.
And
But
also given who her brother is.
right.
Her brother's an archaeologist, isn't it?
No, it's his brother.
Henry's brother.
His
Henry.
brother?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Henry's brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Sea holly is a plant from Mexico or Western Mediterranean or South America. It is a diuretic. And so by them giving it to them, it gives her the urgency. It causes urine formation to speed up and gives her the urgency of needing to pee. And they made her stand there and wait to urinate to see if she could hold her urine, because there's another way of catching a woman if they need to bring charges against her or disprove her in this instance. Her holding her urine reminded me of the scene from 108 when Claire tells Black Jack Crandall that it's this torture by bladder because he's been giving her wine, and she needs to go to the restroom. That was Diane's own words because it's from chapter 21 of Outlander.
That sounds like Diana.
Yeah. And I think that's all of the medical anatomical that I had.
Yeah. But something you brought up, Carmen, that was very interesting. One is that the exam itself could give a false result. Kind of like, what was it like during the witch trials? If you put a woman in water and she sank, she wasn't a witch, but by then she drowned. And if
Yeah.
she saved
You got her
herself,
either
she
way.
got killed anyway because she was she was a witch. But something you brought up before was about the history also, in terms of gynecological history and where it came from. And I just have been doing a bit of reading since then in terms of Dr. Sims and where modern.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was considered sort of the father of modern gynecology, even though his methods were a little bit questionable, since he all the experience he mastered, or he perfected his experiments doing anesthetized slave women. So basically doing a lot of but a lot of those procedures are used today and save a lot of lives. So it's kind of like that double-edged sword. But
I actually had that under behind the scenes.
oh, you did?
That was that was J. Marion Sims. And he did in fact do surgeries on slave women without their consent because they had no consent to give. And he did experiments, especially with women who had rectovaginal fistulas, an opening which developed between the rectum and the vagina. And that often occurs because after childbirth, especially if a woman is too young and the pelvis is not big enough to accommodate the birth of the child, it can crush the tissues and damage them. And then these bridges form. And when that happens, then feces can leak from the rectum in through and come out through the vagina. And if you remember, that happened in one of Claire's patients. The lady brought her slave to Claire, and she performed a transection of the fistula and sewed the two structures together so that she wasn't leaking all of this debris down her legs and onto her clothes. And women just it happens so frequently in the past. But
I would imagine that's what led to a lot of the deaths, like the fevers within 3 to 4 days, and the deaths after from urosepsis.
Yes. And the constant feces in that area gets into as Catherine says, gets into the urethra, and then you've got bacteria in the urinary tract because they're very close together. That whole area, is quite compact, as you know. So He was considered, he is often called the father of obstetrics and
Mm-hmm.
gynecology, but there is a movement afoot in
Mm-hmm.
many quarters to
Yeah.
stop praising him so much because the way that he did it was unacceptable now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no consent, no anesthesia. Um, and he did
Brutal.
multiple surgeries on these young women. Um, and so there's a lot of backlash for Marion J. Sims. And then what he would do after he figured out how to do it right, then he would do it on the white women.
Mm-hmm.
Did he use ether or anything
No,
on anybody?
no.
Even the white women? They just didn't
I
have it.
Well, they had ether in
Mm-hmm.
1840.
Mm.
Whether or not he thought of using it as an anesthesia, I don't know. But
Claire did use that on the
yes,
slave girl.
yes, she did.
Well, with this came up last time and I had the chance to look up. I mentioned that they were that the women in this scenario are being honored now. Here is a statue um, of the three women, and one of those they're considering, let's see, um, the
She had
mother of
an interesting name. Was it Honor or
the mother
was
of gynecology refers to enslaved women Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy, who were subjected to
Anarcha?
experimental surgeries by Dr. Marion Marion Sims in the 1840s without consent or anesthesia.
Right.
So they're calling them the mothers of gynecology and
Good.
just kind of a take it back kind of thing.
Yep.
I saw that on something, and when we talked about it last time, I brought it up, and so I was able to. I love those sculptures. I think they're beautiful.
Yeah.
I also had something to add to medical and anatomical, which could be BTS, but um, in the beginning, when Lord Lovett mentions he's going, uh, I couldn't really tell what word he said, and when I looked it up, there was something called the Well O Spa, is
Mhm.
a historic 15th century mineral well in Aberdeen, known for its healing properties and ancient name, Ho or something like that. It is not a spar in the sense of a rock or the Brent Spar, but a named well that has been moved several times to safer locations due to flooding from local streams.
Hmm.
It apparently isn't functional now, but I looked it up too. Um,
We did more homework for this one.
yep.
Do you guys think that Mrs. Fitz was giving her all that water so that her pee would run clear?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think it helped in the holding it in.
No. But I mean, imagine that people probably then were chronically dehydrated.
Yeah, that's true. Because they didn't really drink water.
She she also may not have known that they were going to give her this sea ollie
Oh, true.
water.
Yeah.
Um, so
And I said this last time, imagine if she was menstruating. And so
I
there would
thought of
have been
that
blood
too.
or something
Yeah.
in the water, and what could she have done? Because they didn't check in with her to see if it was a good time. And I'll just say the reason this whole test is happening is because of bloody Lord Lovett sent a fake, letter. And a woman
Mm-hmm.
is just subjected to this because of, again, a political maneuver by some asshole. It's
Well, no,
outrageous.
I mean, he knows now. Brian said they were hand fasted, so
But
presumably he,
no, but when he sent the letter, he didn't know.
I don't know.
No, he
Mm-mm.
didn't because it was,
It was just
remember?
because there was what was it?
Well, it was Brian. That's why Brian said, "This is my fault," because he actually went to his dad to say, because he had fallen in love with her when
Mm-hmm.
he met her at the gathering, and he knew that she was promised to Malcolm. So he went to his dad to say, hey, this is happening, knowing his dad would get upset, not knowing his dad would say, I know how to fix this. Let's
No. Yeah, that's
tarnish the
right.
reputation of this woman. And Brian's like, oh no. So the whole thing is made up by Lord Lovett.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. And the last thing, there was one more. When Colum says, can he marry off a dead sister? Is he saying that because he's afraid of the speculum and the and the barbaric instruments, or he's
No.
afraid the Grants will kill her if she fails?
Yeah. In fact, I think it was Dougal that referred to that. They'll kill you,
Yeah.
if you don't abide by these
Yeah, I just thought the
agreements.
timing was interesting along with the barbaric instruments. When I first heard it, I was like, he's thinking if you use these on her, you're going to kill her.
Well, that could be.
Yeah. And also last time we did say, I wondered if that was the same medical kit that was Claire found in the dusty old dungeon room, Davy Beaton's, and you said it was
The medical box.
the medical box.
Yeah, with the painting and the details on the lid. That was the same medical box, but the tools were in a chest, if you remember, and they were all bloody and crusted.
Ugh.
Yeah.
They didn't look that bad at this time of.
No, they didn't.
Not yet. Okay, legal and lawyerly.
Well, I have a couple.
Okay.
I don't know anything about them. I wish Antoinette was here to give
Yeah.
us a clue. But did you picked up on the fact that Colum and Dougal were saying, well, and Ned, we can renegotiate the marriage contract now because they have put her through this ordeal. And now we can reduce the dowry probably or get more from the Grants, more concessions from the Grants because she's been proven to be virtuous. And I would really like to have had Antoinette's comment, perspective on that. I did want to say something here about where this kind of test might have come from. Because in Deuteronomy 22:13 through 21, there is something called the law of the false virgin. And this is a documentation of legal proceedings if a wife is accused of not being a virgin on her wedding night. So if there was blood after their intercourse, then the husband, if he accused her, could be punished for slander. But if there was no blood, then the woman would be stoned.
Yeah.
And how was the husband punished?
I think it was up to the local priests, but it wasn't specified apparently.
But he wasn't stoned.
No.
It's such.
Yeah. Right. Right.
BTS.
Well, BTS, I had the Spa of Aberdeen, which we already covered, but I want to speak, and it's okay. I want to speak about the Tortula, that the 12th century medieval compendium on women's health. It was written by a woman. Her name was Torta, and she was a physician and a writer at Salerno. Now, believe it or not, Salerno was way above it. The head of the times about allowing women to go to medical school and become physicians in that place. That was like a little oasis in all the rest of the world, as far as I can tell, but they did. The other thing that I looked up was I wanted to know if, in the concoction, the elixir, Julia asks if they have any brown sugar. And I thought, nah, do they really have brown sugar in Scotland then? And yes, they did. I looked it up, and brown and regular sugar, refined sugar, was refined in Glasgow and Leith beginning in 1667.
Wow.
So that's not off the charts there. That's legit.
Okay.
I did want to also point out that if Ellen had failed her test, she could have been disowned, she could have been killed, she could have been labeled as a whore. So there's really a lot riding on.
Writing this.
Yeah, and so why would women, go through this business of inserting stuff into the vaginal area because they wanted to save themselves, from being killed or worse, living with this kind of humiliation. The tortula contains several recipes for not only causing the tissues to swell so that it looks like a woman is still a virgin, but also there were several recipes for how to produce blood during the wedding night if she was not a virgin. And that it included applying leeches, and as was said last time, they form scabs, and then the intercourse would cause the scabs to come off, and she would bleed from that. There's also various other substances that they could use that would be irritants to the area and could cause bleeding.
Well, I do remember you mentioned last time, and maybe you said this, and I just didn't key into it, but that whole bunch of stuff that Julia mixed together was basically to irritate the vaginal tissues
Sure. Causes
and
them to
make
swell.
them swell.
Yes.
So yeah, when you think about putting gunpowder and
Saltpeter and herbs
yeah,
and alum, various things like that, it would irritate the tissue and they would swell. The tissues would swell under those conditions. So, but what this reminds me of is kind of the underground abortion, which was given to women before abortion became legal in the United States, which was during my lifetime, that women were going to practitioners. But here's a whole compendium this woman wrote about how women could take care of their health because they weren't being cared for by the male physicians in their communities. And so the women, this is an example of women banding together to help each other.
yeah,
And I support that.
yeah.
I go down to my death saying I support that.
What year was this Trocula?
It was the 12th century.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yes. And so I looked up some things about that text as well, and one of the things they said they could do is find a midwife to perform the inspection. Just like Mrs. Fitz said, had hoped the Howdy would do it, and then maybe she would be more sympathetic with the potential outcomes. You mentioned the leeches. Let's see, they said that sometimes a woman would take chicken blood with her to her wedding night bed, and when the guy
Right.
wasn't noticing, sprinkle it around.
I think I've read that they did a small bladder or something like that filled with blood that they would insert into the vagina so that it
Yeah,
broke
like a
during
tampon.
intercourse. Yeah. It broke during intercourse. It released blood.
Let's see, this is another formula for irritating the vagina. It said that women could insert rings, resin, or suppositories that would provide extra resistance. So I don't know how that would all stay in there, but anyway. Clearly, this is not something that is new or that women haven't had to deal with for a long time. So other BTS, the writer Kirsten Van Horn is American, and she also wrote episode 102 SWAC, which had the really amazing. I liked that episode, and it had the Great World War I coverage. Azure Salim, the director, also worked on Doctor Who. I don't know which episodes.
Hmm.
Or which Doctor Who?
Yeah, I don't exactly.
There's
I
been a
had
lot now.
There have been. So, I had a couple of things to read from people who commented. One person said Henry was already damaged when Julia married him.
True.
He was apparently a sensitive person being destroyed by frontline war when they started their correspondence. Then he was shell shocked. She married a damaged soul, and now he's really gone off the rails for good reason. I have a hard time buying into their love story. She's a caregiver. It doesn't seem to be a relationship of equals like Jamie and Claire are. Julia would have been better off marrying Brian. That is more equal relationship and they have great chemistry.
They really
But
do have good
they
chemistry.
do.
I agree. That's a good comment.
That was
Yeah.
the Vicarage, 9841. Um, oh, this was a good one. Lorraine Morgan says, I wanted to comment on your discussion about Claire being overbearing and a bully to men. Please remember that she was in the military, and as a woman who has been in the military, you have to order them around or they ignore you and you can't get anything done as they see you as a helpless woman, and in some way it is dangerous for women, if you know what I mean. It's like confusing a bull moose to keep them from attacking because they have the mass advantage.
Yeah.
I,
Although I have to
That's
say, it wasn't so much that Claire was a bully. It was just there was the writing. It was more like the stars trope. That's all. It had nothing
uh,
to do with the character and how she was written, especially in the books.
no, not in
no,
the
I
books, but
yeah,
I
not the
thought
It
in
was
the
books.
more the
show
show
she was
and how they
often,
were just made. There was no nuance to women's. Their idea of what a strong woman was seemed very unilateral or very one dimensional.
yes, they
But
did have her, in contrast to Ellen, who is more,
intelligent in her. She's more emotionally
Discerning and
and discern. Yeah,
careful,
subtle.
but she
She's,
yeah.
also grew up in that
Time.
castle in
So
that
she's
time.
learned to
And
maneuver.
yeah, I
where
mean,
she had to maneuver, whereas Claire, you kind of sort of comes across as a bull in the china shop sometimes. Show
Mhm.
Claire.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, not book
not
Claire,
book
but
Claire.
I appreciate her pointing that out. I think that that's
Mhm.
a really valid thing. But the problem that I saw with her is that she's not in that setting and she's still behaving as though she is in the show, not in the book. She's
Right.
not that way in the book.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, not always, but sometimes it comes across as being overkill on her part to me.
Me too. I thought it was interesting that this person could relate to her though.
Yeah,
It because of her own experience.
yeah, I agree.
The
I think it's a,
vicarage, oh, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, I think it's an important perspective.
Yeah. The Vicarage 9841 also said in June of 1701, Parliament passed the Act of Settlement. It confirmed the provision of the Bill of Rights that no Catholic or person with a Catholic spouse could sit on the throne. And this was having to do with we were trying to remember if the no Catholic thing was part of the prophecy or a law, and it was a law. And let's see, I think Linda added, I thought there was something that Linda said that the law just changed like recently that you could, in the 20 something that you could have a Catholic spouse
Mm.
now, which is interesting.
Well, I think that was probably brought about by Henry VIII.
What year was Henry VIII?
Six, was it 1500s?
I don't remember.
I don't,
But I mean, this supposedly was just in the, I don't know if it was a typo, but she wrote something like 20.
no, I mean,
17.
against Catholicism because they
Oh,
wouldn't give him a divorce from his various wives. The
okay.
Pope wouldn't, and he wanted to be divorced.
Was this
That's
the
my
Anne
understanding.
Boleyn thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Martina says,
1400s, 14 to 1500s. Henry.
okay, is Henry.
Yeah.
Martina Pryor says, I am surprised how many famous British actors this show tracks. Tony Curran on the top of the list. The actor playing Rob Roy is in tons of British shows like Shetland, Guilt, etc. The same goes for Red Jacob. The cast is just amazing. Have to agree.
Yep.
You
Um,
know, they chose some really good famous actors in the original in Outlander too in the beginning.
okay, let's go to favorite lines.
My favorite quotes were um, when Ned was talking to Cullum, and oh no, it wasn't. It was Dougal talking to Cullum, saying, Has Ellen said anything to you? You know, you two used to be, pretty close." And he said, "We haven't been the same. It hasn't been the same between us since the betrothal." So basically, it's just kind of he knows he betrayed her in some way, and um, but he said it with some regret. I don't. It just seemed like it wasn't like he was just taking it in his stride.
Yeah.
Um, the other was when Colin was talking to Ned, and Ned was saying, basically, um, there's no love lost between you, and they were talking about. So essentially, when Colin was telling Ned that Jocasta would have wanted Ellen to get married because she's miserable in her marriage and misery loves company. And Ned said there was no love lost between you. And Cullen was like, well, what does love have to do with any of this? Which I thought was
Pretty telling.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean Ned was trying to be an advisor, and then Colin pulled the Laird thing of like,
Yep.
I'll like chop your head off if you.
If I find out that you let her out of your sight and something happened.
She's as clean and pure as a budding snowdrop in winter. She does such an amazing job with her Mrs. Fitz accent.
She does, and she doesn't have a big part, but I like the way that she enlarges on it, which I think is a testament to what a good actress that she is.
She is, and she's English.
You wouldn't know it.
Yeah, I
She's
mean, she's got that. I don't know which, I'd have to watch the dialect video again, but like she swallows her words. They're like back here, whatever that from whatever area of Scotland that is. She's got it down. I loved her. I loved the scene and the way she delivered. Shame on all of you for
yeah,
putting her through such an ordeal.
that's one of mine too.
Yeah, she was
The way
so
she
good.
delivered it was just like smack, smack,
And he felt it, and you saw him feel it. And then I like Julia. Oh, I see. That is a surprise.
You mean regarding the bed, the waters, Lord love it.
And he's like, I have a surprise for you, my
Oh,
English
he's,
rose. Like,
he's so clueless.
so
Jeez.
gross and clueless. Yes. Okay.
Well, uh, I liked Davina Porter saying, I'll guard your son with my life, since you are guarding mine with yours. And I thought that that was a nice balance. I thought it made sense. I thought it was two mothers with their sons, expressing to each, they each knew the consequences of what they were doing or potential consequences of what they were doing, and the support they gave each other was really touching to me.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that line.
Want to do another one?
Yeah, Ned Gowan. If she has sinned, let us hope you can find a way to forgive her. And if she's innocent, that she'll find a way to forgive you. That is a really pithy comment from Ned. I mean, he is a pretty insightful guy considering he's not married and he doesn't have any kids apparently and never has been. But he knows human nature, not just the law. I think he knows human nature quite well. And I thought that was an excellent statement to make because he's not too impressed with the lack of love between the siblings of Jacob, Red
Yeah, it
Jacob.
makes you wonder about Ned's family of origin. Like, does he have siblings and what was his
Yeah.
family like? And that actor is Irish.
Oh, he is, huh?
Yeah,
Well, he's a good stand-in for our Ned, I think.
he's really good, I
I
think.
like him a lot. I like his voice too.
Yeah, he has a great, he's a full body actor.
Hmm.
And he's I was thinking when I was watching it again today, I thought I'd like to see Gary Lewis and him next to each other and see who's taller. Because
They're little men, they're diminutive men, but boy, do they ever have big personalities. I mean,
and
it doesn't
they
happen.
deliver powerful
Yeah.
pieces
Yes, they do.
of acting. I
Yeah.
liked Dougal. We can Ellen can he hold her tongue, so let us hope she can hold her water.
They were very worried for their themselves.
Well, that's, when you said Colum, crossed himself,
Yeah.
I thought part of that was like, please let her behave. Please let her just do
Just
what
like,
she's supposed to do. And I, as a sister who is not such a rule follower, I feel like I've seen my brothers in that, in that posture before. Um, there, the irony of Malcolm when they're saying goodbye and, Ned is saying something, or Colin saying, look forward to the ceremony, and uh, Malcolm says it will be a joyous occasion. And it's like, how can you say that after you've just put this woman through this? Like, uh, you know, if I were Ellen, I'd probably never forgive him if I had to end up marrying him. Would you forgive him?
well, he would never know it.
Oh, you would do it for yourself, but he would never know it.
Right. Because
Yeah.
in those days it would be dangerous to,
Yeah.
to be
Yeah. Yeah.
upfront about your feelings.
Yeah. That's true.
I thought the exchange between Brian and Lord Lovett early on, Brian says, Father, I care for her. And Lord Lovett says, the look on his face was like, what?
Are you an
Nonsense.
alien? Like
Yeah.
it's like he doesn't even, it's like he's speaking another language.
Yeah. He said nonsense.
Yeah.
He has no, he's a sociopath and a narcissist is what my diagnosis is. So he has no feeling for other people. He sees them as objects to use for his own purposes.
Yeah, so he truly does not understand Brian.
No, he doesn't. He's that's why he's constantly undermining him about his pilgrimage, for
Yeah.
instance, and things like that is because he doesn't understand why he loves people.
Yes.
Another one that I liked was Ellen saying, "I'll take his name to my grave." And
I
she
liked that
delivered that
too.
extraordinarily well. I can't do her justice, but I just thought it was, I believed her.
Mm-hmm.
You will not make, no, I will not divulge the name of my love.
Almost for the protection of all three of them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because, we already saw Ned try to pressure Mrs. Fitz into telling him something, and if she doesn't know anything, then she can't get in trouble.
She does know things though, but she's not,
But she doesn't know who, and she
no.
doesn't, and I think what I'm saying is that I think Ellen's protecting herself, Brian, and Mrs. Fitz in that scenario.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought this was really interesting when Archbug says, these Mackenzies are slippery, and the last most of all. What did he mean by that?
Oh, the lass.
The last, yeah, the last
He's
most
talking
of
about
all.
Ellen.
He is talking about Ellen. How would he
Yeah.
know? And
Mm.
but
Oh,
he's like, I don't know. I just thought that was really I was surprised by that comment, but he is so filled with rage that I think it comes from that.
yes, and he also has been watching and probably saw some stuff at the Beltane.
Could be.
Yeah. So it could come from that he's like, I'm not buying
No,
this whole thing.
no. He smells a rat.
Exactly. And he looks like he always is smelling something bad.
He does. So I have 4 more. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah, just rattle them off.
Well, um, Lord Levitt says, taking the waters will restore my prowess in the bedchamber.
He's so gross.
I laughed out loud. He's just clueless. He just, because he adores himself, he thinks everybody else does too.
Ugh.
Another statement he made to Brian was, a Mackenzie deflowered by a Fraser. There's poetry in that.
That's a great line.
Yeah, it really is. It's well written. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a well constructed comment, and reveals who he is, what motivates him, what excites him and gives him pleasure, to think that he might bring destruction to somebody else. I liked Malcolm Grant's statement, my father says a woman with a mind of her own is dangerous. And in that world, Ellen would be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Malcolm saying, such a pleasure to have you with us, when he's speaking to Henry, and Bug says, such a pleasure to have you with us.
I think you have a crush on Archbug.
Oh, I'm fascinated by him, actually. I just think he's just he does an amazing job. And I find him totally unexpected. I wasn't expecting him to be in this series. Then he comes in with, he's such a character in it. He really plays an important part. So those were my lines.
And I think we might have talked about that last time, because I felt the same about Lord Lovett. I had no idea when they were showing the casting of this thing. I thought, oh, Lord Lovett, he'll be in the background or whatever. I mean, he has a central role and he is very compelling. And Archbug, same thing. Yeah. So
I agree.
okay, let's go to standouts.
For standouts, definitely Ellen in all her scenes. And I mean, she just carried every scene she was in. Even when she wasn't talking, someone else was doing the talking. Her reactions carried the scene. The other was, I felt that it was very sincere. Cullum was genuinely, I think, concerned that his relationship with her was going to be affected.
Yeah.
I think they were close. I don't think she was ever close to Dougal. I don't think Dougal's close to anybody. He's too self-centered and not too bright. But Cullum and Ellen just seemed like they were kind of different sides of the same coin, to a certain degree. So that was my standout.
She was top of my list.
Me too. So that's 3.
Mm-hmm.
3 for Harriet Slater.
Yep. So I'll mention Kirsten Van Horn. I think this episode is really well written. And I'll just throw in Azure Salim. I think the writer director combo really worked in this episode.
Yeah.
And there are, look at all the favorite lines. And, um, Catherine mentioned the dialogue. It just was written with a complexity. It lent the complexity and a depth and a weight to the content of this episode.
There was almost nothing superfluous.
Yeah.
Everything had something to say,
Except for
and
Henry.
and
Henry was, but
bless
Henry's a
bless
little
his heart.
extra. He just is. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Well, I had Harriet Slater at the
Mhm.
top of my list. I also had Terrence Ray as Archbug. He's
Mhm.
just terrible, nasty, angry, and hateful all the time. And he has a burning thread of destruction that eats at his soul, as far as I can tell. I loved the opening scene of the bathing. It took me back to the preparation of Red Jacob and his death in episode 1, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Mhm.
I thought it was beautifully choreographed and filmed with the water and the quietness and the steam, and her sitting contemplatively in the bath. And I just thought it set the mood beautifully for what was to come in the episode. And the last one that I thought was a standout was I really liked the music, because the whole story was so excellent. It almost fades into the background. But this, when I watched it again, when she enters the hall, the music that accompanies her as she's going toward the dais is just intense. It's dramatic, it's suspenseful, and it was like nothing I've ever heard him write before.
Hmm.
It's just really great.
I
Um,
have to go back and listen to that. I didn't
yeah,
pick up on that.
I missed it because I was so, in the first watch, because I was so busy paying attention to the characters, and what was going on and the anticipation and everything. But this second time I listened to that music and oh my gosh, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, and the
Oh,
music, somebody mentioned that the music is more subtle this time.
yeah.
And I agree with that. It's kind of like a more of a in the background. Um, well, I had some other ones. I want to call out Sally Mesham as Mrs. Fitz.
Mhm.
I think she's doing a great job and really stood out in this episode.
Yep.
Connor McNeil as Ned.
Yep.
Um, Seamus Ross McLean as Colum.
Mm.
Jack the horse.
Bless his heart. What a beauty.
What
Oh
a
my.
and you can see why people fall in love with him. He's got a lot of, some horses are special like that, and he's one of those.
Yeah.
Um, Tony Curran, once again, even just, he was only in those two first scenes, but it was just enough, he
Yeah.
just really eh. And I thought the Grants Beaton and the clergyman did a good job too. So I could
Yeah. I
probably
mean,
just say the ensemble. I had Archbug also. I mean, it was just everyone
yeah.
did a great job in this
Yep.
episode. Um, okay, let's go to big themes.
My big theme was helplessness with hope. And essentially, that so many of them seemed like they were in helpless situations. They were just sort of desperate in their own way, that there was things that they were beyond their control, and especially with Ellen. Um, and then, but there was hope involved with all of it. There was always given some type of hope. And that seemed to be what they, you know, whatever they would hang on to was that hope. So that was my big theme.
I felt there were many, but I'll just mention probably what stood out the most to me is the trauma bond between Brian and his dad, and how, which is, a narcissist empath type bond. And Brian is still still sharing his vulnerabilities with his dad, hoping to get something. And
Not ever going to be anything there.
that guy just doesn't have anything
Mhm.
to give. And,
No.
you know, when he said, he's trying to kind of get his attention by saying, Father, I really care for her. And his dad just is like, that's ridiculous, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Nonsense, he said.
yeah, but you've seen it throughout the whole series so far is Brian is continuing. I mean, he went to his dad to try to resolve the Grant marriage to Ellen, and it ended up backfiring and creating this whole situation for Ellen. Um, and then the other time when he said, I want to please you,
How do I
you
do
know,
that?
how do I do that? And then his father berates him, and just
Yeah,
points
he can't
out
please him.
what a
That's the
loser
answer.
he is.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with Brian.
No.
Like I've said before, I feel like Brian's the ugly duckling, but he doesn't know because he doesn't have any perspective. He's stuck in that house
Yeah.
with that abusive dad. And that just really stood out to me and I really look forward to when Brian wakes up and stops looking to his dad for anything besides the just crap that he is. And even Davina is, a little bit in that too when she said, um, he said something like, my father doesn't see me as a, worth whatever. He said something and she said, well, we'll make him see. He'll never see.
No.
And I can't wait till they see that, if they ever do. Um, and then the other one was Women Find a Way. And I said this last time, that Julia and Davina teamed up together to help Brian, to help Ellen with the concoction. And then Ellen, I mentioned this last time that even in that really terrible test, she claimed her agency when she grabbed that water and drank it. And that was a diplomatic thing to do. In the ways that she claimed her agency.
Yes.
And I really like that about that character. And I really like that they show this thread about women, of working together, finding a way, and claiming agency. Yeah.
Yep. That was one of my big themes I had. Working together, people can prevail over a despicable system. And
Yeah.
which is another way of saying what you're saying. They work together to get a better outcome. So the other big theme that I have, which was at the top of my list, is patriarchy is foul. It always has been, and it always will be. And I know that that might not be a very popular uh, thing to say in all quarters, but that I grew up in a patriarchal home, and I am very familiar with the abuses that come to pass from that kind of a setting. So I thought this was a good demonstration of that, and I don't like it.
And I did some thinking about that because we had a week between when we talked last, and um, it, so do you think a matriarchal society would be better?
I do.
Okay. Not a blended?
Well, I think a blended, if you're asking between a patriarchal and a matriarchal,
No,
the
I'm asking like
matriarchal would be better.
what would be ideal?
Well, I think an ideal one would be for people to have equality, and that would be a blended system. But I don't know of any.
Hmm.
I think there are a few maybe that come closer than others, but they're not very common. I think that If you look at what's happened in some of the countries that have women leaders, they're doing pretty well. Mexico is turning itself around,
Yeah.
for instance, and they seem to have, if you've got a good female leader, she seems to have her thumb more on the needs of people instead of going to war
Yeah.
or trying to prove who's got the biggest dick in the room. Uh,
No, that's for sure. I mean, I guess I just like matriarchal. I think it would be fabulous for us to have a woman president in this country.
I do too.
But I don't
I
think everyone holding office should be a woman.
I don't either.
Okay. Well, I
I'm
was
not
just
saying that.
okay.
I'm not saying that. I just think that, in fact, you could have a matriarchal type society without having a woman
No.
in as the leader, if it's based on the values that that I see as being more important to women as a group than to men.
Yeah, which probably wouldn't happen if you had a man.
Probably not, but I wouldn't say it's impossible.
No. I
I,
mean,
you
I
know,
feel like yeah, anyway, we won't get into politics, but
yeah.
okay. Well, um, thank you for doing this again.
Oh,
I'm
it's a
like,
pleasure.
where is it recorded? Yes, it is.
Oh, I
Um,
hope so.
yeah, no, it is.
Good,
Gosh. And it
good.
ended up being the same three of us, and I think we
Yeah,
covered most of it.
yeah.
So,
And a
yeah.
little bit more,
Yeah.
actually. I think there were some new things that came out this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for coming and
All right.
okay, good.
Hey,
Well,
Good night.
I'll see you in Scotland.
all right.
Yeah. Good night, Kathy. Stay safe.
All right. You too.
See
Bye.
you
Okay.
there. Bye bye. Well, dear, you take good care of yourself.
Okay, you too.
We'll see you in Scotland.
I can't wait. I've been working on it all morning. There are some surprises.
Oh, good. Well, I love you. You
I love you.
see you. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.